If like likes like, then why does the codependent attract a narcissist? A narcissist is cold-hearted and a codependent is warm-hearted. A narcissist looks to exploit others, while the codependent is the one who gets exploited. So how does the theory of like likes like come into play here? So first, let's look at the over-the-top codependent, and then we will look at the codependent versus the narcissist and what they have in common. And please take note here that I'm not doing this talk today to bring anyone down here if you're a codependent. I too have spent a lifetime walking in my codependent shoes, and it wasn't until I was able to face my own truth that those shoes came off, where in turn self-respect took place for me and others started treating me differently in a good way. So that being said, let's move on. Have you ever had a friend in your life who constantly shows up or still shows up at your door at all times of the day, often without even calling, and they're bearing gifts? It could be things like food, such as cookies or soups, or maybe they show up with information that you've been looking for. Maybe you've been looking to purchase a new home and they keep showing up with lists of homes available. And although that might seem great, they're searching 75% more of the time than you are. It's over-the-top searching. They always appear to be helpful, and so it makes it extra hard to not accept these surprise visits. And even though you really had other matters that you had wanted to tend to, or maybe you just wanted to do nothing and just be by yourself, self-care, but their neediness and your inability to set boundaries takes that away from you. You're left feeling as though you owe them, and so you find yourself using up more of your valuable time doing the same for them, such as making them cookies and buying them gifts. And what's even harder in some cases is your friend that shows up uninvited like that doesn't just stay for a cup of coffee here. They stay the whole day into evening until you reach your limit and have to ask them to leave. I mean, how uncomfortable is that? And you feel that you can't talk to them about this in fear that they're going to be upset. Or you feel that you can't mention anything at all to them, like telling them that you're thinking about perhaps getting another job, because that might just send them on another expedition to help you find another job. Every encounter with them leaves you feeling completely void of energy. You feel exhaustion. You feel obliged. You feel guilty. If you say no, you feel bad. You feel manipulated, you feel controlled, and you feel manipulated and controlled because you are being controlled and manipulated, even though they aren't even aware that they're doing this, or they aren't trying to be controlling, but they are. And then if you do set stricter boundaries, you're going to see them go from nice to not so nice. You'll see the true colors come out here. You will see a change in their behavior, and it can be little covert things like the little hearts that they always send at the end of a text message. All of a sudden, there's no little heart or there's no little smiley face. So you know. But now I bet you a lot of you are just about to click off this video because you know that you're codependent yourself, but would never do those awful things to others. And I would agree, because the type of people who would click on a video like this is more likely people like you who are self-aware. So stick with me here. Having a codependent like that in your life, it can be really frustrating because you already have a narcissist that you've somehow attracted, and now you have to deal with a severe codependent like that. And that's what this is. This is an extreme case of codependency. So why do we attract this to us? Well, life likes to teach us lessons to help us learn. So the quicker that we learn these lessons, the quicker that we can have peace. This over-the-top friend or neighbor or cousin in whatever form that you're experiencing is in your face to show you the things in you that you need to address and apply in your own life. Unfortunately, But it's for your own good, right? Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. So, for example, boundaries and the right to say no to others and say yes to yourself. They're showing you the parts of you on a grander scale, of course. The parts of self that are needy, which of course is only normal, given the fact that you just weren't acknowledged growing up. You're just trying to survive. They're showing you the parts of self that you actually hate about yourself, which is a good thing. Because once you can identify your weaknesses, you can change them. And then when you can change them, you no longer attract narcissists as partners or friends or co-workers. Win-win. Now, I said that we're going to be talking about codependents versus narcissists and what they have in common that could explain this likes theory. So here we go. Both the codependent and narcissists come from dysfunctional family upbringings. The narcissist became narcissistic from experiencing some form of overt abuse, like verbal assaults, for example. The codependent will often come from situations where the abuse was done more covertly, such as neglect. The child became a parent to the parent themselves or the siblings. And in both situations, both the narcissist and the codependent strive to survive in the world by proving their self-worth. The narcissist needs to be admired and will go through great lengths using manipulative tactics to obtain it. The codependent needs to be needed and will also go to great lengths to acquire that. Both are completely depending on others to obtain their sense of self rather than acquiring it from the inner self. Both have issues self-regulating. Both will feel anger and resentment if they don't get what they were after. Both are in denial. The narcissist is in denial about what he or she really feels other than anger and resentment. They're not going to go deeper. They're in denial about any of the emotional feelings that they deem as weak, such as sadness, shame, and hurt, while the codependent is in denial about his or her very own needs due to never having been acknowledged growing up, like I just said. Both have the same shame wound. The codependent will feel shame due to having experienced never being good enough for the caregivers, for example. So they'll seek out ways to cover that up by proving their self-worth, by self-sacrificing, and by doing more, always doing extra. We're always so busy, aren't we? And that way, everyone gets to see what an amazing person that we are. We need the acknowledgement. Everybody needs acknowledgement. The narcissist, though, will cover up their shame wound by overpowering others with their skills or by using other forms of power over others. Let's look at communication. Neither codependents nor narcissists are capable of effective communication. Both are incapable of identifying clearly what they're feeling. Both will be passive-aggressive. The narcissist doesn't want to show his or her vulnerabilities, not even to their own selves, while the codependent cannot assert themselves. They keep everything bottled up inside about what's bothering them until eventually it blows up. And the same with the narcissist. Both feel a shame wound around their feelings. Both are incapable of expressing what they feel due to both fear and pride. And often the codependent will act as though they don't need help from anyone due to the rejection that they had experienced in childhood. And it is the same with the narcissist. They will act as though they are completely self-sufficient. But when the other side of the personality shows its face, they become the victim and need everyone's help. And we're talking especially about the vulnerable narcissist here. So both of them are going to have resentment towards the other for the feelings that they have inside. And to the person that's codependent listening here, dealing with a narcissist is definitely easy to blame unhappiness on. They are incredibly hard on others. But living in resentment is not a normal, healthy life choice. And as long as you're living with unhealed codependency, it doesn't matter that these narcissists exit your life because the resentment is still going to be there long after they're gone. It's been there way before the narcissist came into your life. Okay, so moving on. We have maladjusted boundaries. The narcissists grew up with their boundaries crossed all of the time, but don't let them off the hook here, because the difference between you and them is that they will never be willing to look at themselves in the mirror. And because of the disrespect for their boundaries that they experienced, they in turn stopped respecting the boundaries of others. As for the codependent, having boundaries is a weak spot for them, something that they would like to change. But it's hard because they learn that saying no to others, or rather saying yes to themselves, meant that they were bad, that they were selfish. And so today a codependent struggles with putting their foot down. And people walk all over us. So although the boundary response is different for both the narcissist and the codependent, it still remains that both are dysfunctional. Let's look at abandonment. Both the narcissist and the codependent have an extreme fear of abandonment. The narcissist is terrified of losing supply, while the codependent is terrified of not being needed or not being enough, not being acknowledged. The narcissist, they can't handle rejection, and they're going to do whatever they can to ensure that the victim stays by using tactics such as gaslighting and emotional blackmail, while the codependent will use tactics like giving over control to the other. They're going to adhere to the needs of the narcissist, and they're going to abandon their own needs. Although the motives differ, both the narcissist and the codependent seek control. The codependent will control situations such as conflicts by not making waves, for example. If they can control and manage the needs of the narcissist, they can then gain stability. Codependents will control by doing extra for others at their own inconvenience to get what they want, rather than to simply ask or demand. And that's a mask. Narcissists aren't the only ones wearing masks, except of course the codependent isn't being cruel in this. However, if you aren't being authentic in what you want or what you need, that right there is a false self. You're not being true to yourself. If others are controlling us like that, we are to blame, unfortunately. And I'm not trying to be harsh here. We had a rough go to the start of life, but we're adults now. We have new choices, and we can make the choice to heal. As codependents, we tend to control people by pleasing, and then we resent others for not having acknowledged what we did, because we feel hurt, of course. As for the narcissist, control is all about dominance. It's about power. Everything needs to go their way. It's their way or the highway, and the needs of others are irrelevant, while the codependent somehow agrees, because for the codependent, the needs of others is all that matters, disregarding their own needs. The narcissist wants to be in charge and is resentful when they don't get to be. The codependent allows everyone else to be in charge and is resentful when they are. It's quite the toxic dance. The codependent controls by sacrificing their own needs, while the narcissist controls by exploiting the needs of others. Both the narcissist and the codependent are dealing with low self-esteem. Both seek out external validation that to them is going to prove that they are worthy beings. One uses arrogance and grandiosity, while the other self-sacrificing and giving, both of which are grandiose gestures, both of which are a false self. Because take the codependent, for example, that says yes time and time again to babysitting when down deep they resent it. That isn't authentic at all. Hence the false self. They aren't being truthful. And just because it isn't coming from a mean part of self, it doesn't make it okay either. Imagine how awful that you would feel if the tables were turned, if you came to find out that someone was doing something for you while resenting it all along, yet having a smile on their face. You'd be livid. You'd see them as hypocrites. You would probably feel embarrassed also. And I know that it comes from fear of saying no, and the intention wasn't about being mean here, but there is someone that you are being mean to, and that is you. Don't you count for something? Don't you want others to count you for something? I mean, if so, and I believe it is so, you need to count for something inside of you first. Otherwise, you're telling the universe that it's quite all right for everyone else to step all over you. It's not all right. Stop agreeing to that. Both the narcissist and the codependent come from dysfunctional family dynamics, from drug or alcohol abuse, narcissism, codependency, abuse, neglect, or extreme high expectations. In this dance of human relationships, one of the most complex and challenging dynamics is the interplay between codependents and narcissists. Codependency and narcissism represent opposite ends of the relational spectrum, yet they often find themselves entwined in a toxic and destructive embrace. Codependents, driven by a deep need for approval and validation, are prone to forming relationships with narcissists who are characterized by a grandiose sense of self-importance and a lack of empathy. This dance of dependence and manipulation can create a cycle of dysfunction that is both emotionally draining and difficult to break. And I know I keep repeating myself, but I'll say it again. Codependents are typically individuals who get their sense of self-worth from pleasing and caring for others. And on the flip side, narcissists, as you all know, thrive on the admiration and attention of others, exploiting the codependent's desire to nurture and please. And this creates a power dynamic where the codependent often sacrifices their own needs and desires to meet the crazy demands of the narcissist. So the codependent finds themselves caught in a cycle of giving and receiving little in return as the narcissist exploits their vulnerability and need for validation. So basically, the narcissist is abusing you, and you are abusing you. Breaking free from the toxic dance between codependents and narcissists, it requires a deep understanding of oneself and the dynamics at play. Codependents have to learn to set boundaries, prioritize their own well-being, and they have to cultivate a sense of self-worth independent of external validation. They have to find it from within. And then a narcissist also could benefit from introspection and therapy to address the underlying insecurities that drive their need to have constant admiration from others. But they would really have to want to. Breaking free from these destructive patterns requires courage, self-awareness, and a commitment. Recognizing the dynamics between codependence and narcissists is the first step towards breaking the cycle and creating space for genuine, mutually supportive connections. However, as most of you know, the narcissist is highly unlikely to want to change. So I would strongly suggest that you don't depend on this. Otherwise, you're just still at square one. You are still seeking your happiness from the outside, from the external. External referencing is what we call it. So choose you and heal that. And once you do, the right person will come along and love you the way that you deserve to be loved. And I know that it isn't fun to have to walk the extra mile to repair the damage that's been done to us, but if you don't do it, no one else will. We tend to want the others to change, but this isn't happening. I'm telling you, it is worth it. Look within. That is all for today. And so on that note, I wish you all a great week, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.